Our generation might be facing a job crisis, the likes of which the world has never seen before. And if you happen to think I'm over-exaggerating about this, and rightly so even, let me just put it in this simple way. We are currently fighting a three-front war on the job market. On one side, you have multinational corporations outsourcing jobs overseas. On another side, mass immigration, both legal and illegal, flooding into the homeland of America, increasing competition in the labor market, and driving down wages. And now, there's the third front that's about to be opened up. I think you know what that is. It's AI. And it could completely change everything. It could genuinely tip the entire system over. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. Because due to everything I've just said, it seems like there's a perfect storm right now to cause an economic crisis. And as usual, it seems like no one in power is doing anything productive about it. But first I want to talk about my own story, because as many of you guys know, earlier this year, I actually made a video called I Lost My Freelance Writing Job to AI. You can watch that right here if you want, but that video went viral because it echoed the fears and anxieties of a lot of people. I mean, another reason why it went viral was because not only was the video itself about losing my job to AI, but there was actually an AI-generated description that YouTube automatically gave underneath the video. People found that funny, turned it into a meme and all that. But the one thing I actually found interesting about my video was how a lot of people in the comments seemed a lot more upset than even I was about the situation. Saying things like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. It must be so devastating to lose your job. We gotta all come together and fight back against AI." And just that kind of stuff, which by the way I really appreciate. I genuinely appreciate the concern, and it means a lot that people care. But the funny thing is that I personally wasn't even that upset about it. And you know why? Because that was something I had already seen possibly coming, even months in advance. Because even back in 2024, when I was still working with that company, we were already openly discussing how to integrate AI into the workflow to help with things like just generating, brainstorming ideas, fixing errors during the editing process. And both myself and the company in other areas were already experimenting with AI in an effort to make work more efficient. So at some point, when I actually stopped getting those tasks assigned to me, those blog articles in my case, I wasn't shocked, I wasn't really taken aback. It was just a natural conclusion to think that, yeah, they probably just at some point decided to automate the entire process. And like I believe I made clear in the video, I have no hard feelings about it. I have nothing against the company or the people there. I don't blame them whatsoever. It's just a small business wanting to cut costs. It wasn't even like a giant corporation or something. So there's really no reason to be bitter about it. And as you can probably tell, I'm not one of those people who's like anti-technology and angry about AI, saying that we should just ban it and stuff like that. But I think my case really does illustrate a concerning trend that's, like it or not, going to start affecting more and more people in the near future. Now, in case you somehow didn't know, Gen Z is in such a strange place in history if you really think about it. Let me just put it this way. We're the first generation to grow up with AI, but also the last generation to remember life without it. That makes us both the pioneers of this new era in a sense, but also the guinea pigs or the test subjects to be experimented on. Because we're rushing into the future at 1,000 miles per hour and no one really knows what this AI revolution is going to bring. You even hear things about the singularity if you want to go down that rabbit hole. And speaking of the AI revolution, insofar that it is a revolution, don't forget what revolutions actually do. Revolutions destroy what came before them. And in this case, what came before the AI revolution is human labor, human jobs. So by definition, it's a perfectly logical concern to be worried about AI possibly wiping out the entire job market or a large swath of it. And the interesting thing about it is that it's primarily not the so-called low-skilled or manual labor jobs that are going to be the first ones to be replaced. It's actually the quote-unquote high-skilled jobs that are first on the chopping block. The jobs that all our parents said we should go to college for. They would say you want to go into tech, into STEM, you don't want to become a plumber. But now it low-key seems like plumbing might be the move. because some of the first jobs that are going to be replaced by AI are things like coding, data analytics, engineering, the same white-collar jobs that we were all taught to pursue, and we're told that they're the safe options. They'll guarantee the most stability. The big number that I see referenced a lot is how Goldman Sachs estimated that AI could replace 300 million jobs worldwide in the coming years. 300 million, that's like the entire population of America. And again, a lot of these are going to be in tech-related fields that many people spent 4 years in college studying for and going into debt for. But it's not just them, obviously. Creative work, too, is at risk of losing its humanity. Artists, animators, graphic designers, even writers and journalists, all of these jobs that represent relatively a higher level of personal expression, these are going to be phased out as well. Have you seen the new Sora AI videos? Those are crazy. Some of them look so realistic now that it makes you think in a few years down the line, how are you even going to be able to tell the difference between what's real and what's not? What's art made by a human and what's art generated by a computer? And this is a point I want to make that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. The death of creative jobs is actually going to hurt the culture. Because people like to mock, any kind of artist, designer, writer, musician, treat them like they have bullshit jobs and that they're unnecessary and all that, making fun of their college degrees. And I get that argument to some extent. A lot of what's driving innovation in the 21st century is just STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and those are seen as more prestigious subjects for good reason. But at the same time, especially if you do claim to be a conservative or a traditional kind of person, it's hard to deny that things like art, literature, design, these things have been cultural pillars of the very Western civilization that we're trying to preserve, right? For example, you can literally look at a society's soul through its architecture. The great cathedrals of Europe, the beautiful palaces of East Asia, and here in America, think about the early skyscrapers of New York. They represented true vision and ingenuity, humanity in a way, just pushing the boundaries of not only what is advanced, but also what is beautiful at the same time. But we as a society in 2025, it seems like there's no value in beauty anymore, as cringe as that might sound. But really think about it and look around. Everything just looks lifeless and soulless. Corporate buildings, gray boxes everywhere, minimalism as an excuse for cheap design. The common example people refer to is look at McDonald's 30, 40 years ago versus the McDonald's today. The life has been taken out of it. It used to be fun, vibrant, social. Now it's just dull, trite, and, like I said, minimalist. And if you think this is bad already, think about what's going to happen when the AI slop comes around. When everything becomes not only just sterile and purely optimized for efficiency, but also possibly even uncanny. So maybe we're not just losing jobs. We're losing what makes civilization worth building in the first place. Think about that. And I know there are people who say that new technology just creates new jobs and that humans always learn to adapt. And that definitely could be true. I for sure hope it is. I'd love to be wrong about this. But the reason why this time feels a little bit different than in the past is because, for example, take the Industrial Revolution of the 1800s. Sure, machines might have replaced a lot of the physical labor, but people still had a purpose in that they were the ones who controlled it. That's how things have always been for new inventions. No matter what the invention, it still had to be manned by a human. Because we have minds, we have consciousness, we have intelligence. I mean, some of the trolls in my comments might not have that last part, but you know what I mean. But now, AI, well, it literally stands for artificial intelligence. Machines aren't just replacing a task, they're going to potentially be replacing the process of thinking and creating itself. So when that's gone, what do we as humans have left to do? And another common solution I hear proposed is about universal basic income. Oh, we'll just, sort of redistribute the money that AI creates because there's so much additional money from the productivity that it can go back towards the people who might have lost their jobs due to AI. But let's just be real about it. Do you really think the government, at least the way it is today, would actually give wealth back to the people? Of course not. Do you think the corporations are not just going to try to funnel all that extra wealth from the productivity to enrich themselves? Of course not. If anything, the AI revolution is going to cause one of the biggest wealth transfers in all of human history. because the people who own and operate the I mean, before the AI just takes over everything, well, they're gonna get richer than ever. But on the other hand, the people who aren't in control of the AI are simply going to be left behind, scrambling for whatever scraps of society are left. I mean, that last line might have been a little bit of hyperbole, but you know what I mean. Point is that it's going to create even more income and wealth inequality than ever before. The difference between the haves and the have-nots is going to be so vast. And when that happens, there are going to be very few haves who have everything, very many have-nots who have nothing, but also nothing to lose, and are going to be very angry. So logically, what do you think happens from there? And that's why all of this isn't just about economics in a vacuum. It's about societal stability as a whole. Because once enough people start realizing that the system isn't working for them anymore, and they don't have a stake in the game, that's when things start to collapse and get dangerous for everyone. But let's zoom out for a second though. Instead of catastrophizing about the future, let's just bring it back to the modern day 2025. To go back to my original point at the beginning of the video, AI isn't just happening in isolation. It's just the latest front in a much bigger war on the job market. Again, if you think about it, it's 3 fronts simultaneously: outsourcing, mass immigration, and now AI. But let's start with the first one, outsourcing. For decades now, multinational corporations have been shipping jobs overseas to save costs. There was a story, for example, about this hotel chain that was literally using some Indian guy on a screen on FaceTime to man the front desk. And it's just hard to believe that in a developed country like America, something like that can even happen. It kind of even hits at your national pride almost, like why is this happening in what's supposed to be the greatest country in the world? But in general, not only things like customer service, but also higher skilled labor like coding, data analytics, engineering, industrial manufacturing even. They're all being moved to places where labor is much cheaper and these companies don't have to pay American wages, so American people aren't getting those jobs. These are corporations that are multinational in nature and don't represent the best interests of America. And they don't even try to hide it anymore. CEOs brag about things like efficiency and global competitiveness and all those buzzwords. And it sure means profits for them. I'm sure they're happy about it. But people in this country are struggling to find jobs. America's biggest competitor or adversary, obviously, is China. And these companies, they don't care about America's interest, so they outsourced a lot of their manufacturing to China, aka a lot of American companies have their products assembled in China. And that not only took away millions of potential jobs from Americans, but allowed China to become an industrial powerhouse, to the point where for a lot of industries, we're just relying on them. Anyways, that's the whole thing about outsourcing. There's so much more to say, I could go into a whole video about it, but these are just some basic points I wanted to bring up. The other third of the equation is mass immigration. I can already imagine all the woke people getting angry, getting ready to type out their angry responses in the comments. But no, this is an issue that I think we need to have an honest conversation about. And I know that there actually are a lot of very reasonable, open-minded left-wing people who watch my channel, and that's something I appreciate. You're always welcome here. But yeah, both legal and illegal immigration is flooding the US job market, like it or not. Currently, there are around 14 million illegal immigrants in America. And now how many legal immigrants are there? We get over 1 million new legal immigrants per year, a lot of them on things like H-1B visas. The point is that this is an issue because this mass influx of people is not only increasing the competitiveness for these jobs, but also decreasing the wages because many of these people from other countries are willing to work for much less. These wages can't really go up when there are millions of people willing to undercut them. And on a side note, on a tangent, it also could be driving up housing prices too. And that's just basic stuff I'm just mentioning to have it on record. But now I want to talk about something that politicians and the media, and really any other commentator in this space won't tell you. Because here's what a lot of people miss in all this, including almost everyone who considers themselves on the right and claims to be anti-immigration or whatever. You want to know why the borders are so open? Why our government willingly allows millions and millions of people to flood in every single year? It's not purely because they're incompetent. It's also not purely because they're woke and have this diversity agenda. I mean, that's part of it, but I think that diversity agenda actually belies something even deeper. The fact that corporations who are really in control of our government through lobbying, they're the ones who want mass migration. They're the ones who want millions of people from third world countries to come into America and do the dirty work for them so they can keep their wages low and that keeps their profits high. And big business lobbies the government to either look the other way or even encourage expanding immigration policies. It's simply in their best interest. And this illustrates a bigger problem I find with the political right, that Republicans are simultaneously anti-immigrant, but also support basically an unregulated free market. But the hard truth is that you can't possibly be both of those at the same time, because if you have a totally unregulated, laissez-faire free market, then these corporations who have all the power are going to want all these immigrants to come in because they bring cheap labor and they're the most efficient way to increase profits. That's why if you do think mass immigration is an issue, then logically you also have to be in favor of some sort of regulation or restrictions on corporations, prohibiting them from hiring these people, cheap labor from third world countries and illegal immigrants. And just to be clear, for the few open-minded left-wing people who watch my channel, it's absolutely nothing against these immigrants whatsoever. It's just that American citizens are struggling. American citizens aren't even being fully taken care of, so how can the country take on the burden of more and more people every single year that only increase competition and undercut wages? It's not their fault, it's just reality. And now, on top of both the issues of outsourcing, jobs going abroad, and then mass immigration, people from other countries taking jobs in America, now you have, of course, the AI crisis. And when combined with the previous two fronts of this three-front war on the job market, this could be the straw to break the camel's back. This could be the last domino to fall before a total economic collapse. I'm not saying this for the sake of sounding scary. I'm saying this to sound the alarm so that some of you guys might be more prepared for a case in which something like this does happen. Again, with this trifecta of outsourcing, immigration, and AI, each one individually would be an issue in and of itself. But all three at once is how you destroy an economy and how you destroy the future of an entire generation economically. Whatever happens in the future, it is what it is. I don't think things are slowing down or changing anytime soon. I hope I'm wrong. So I think the only thing we can do, and that we should do, is to be mentally prepared for what could be coming. And one important distinction I do want to make, if it wasn't already clear, even though I'm someone who has personally been affected by AI, and I personally have a grudge against AI, if you want to call it that, I think that we can't afford to be naive about it either. The goal isn't to run from technology or to ban it completely. It should be to control it in an optimal way. I know some people genuinely hate AI and want to see the world get rid of it, but not only do I not think that's realistic, I don't think it's strategic either from an American perspective. Because if America stops innovating in artificial intelligence, that's not going to make China stop, that's not going to make Russia stop. So it kind of leaves us no choice. We either innovate with the rest of the world, compete with the rest of the world, or get left behind. So I think that the ideal situation is that we have a system where AI development still continues, of course, specifically for research and innovation purposes, and to understand the technology better, but with very important regulations in place to protect workers and make sure the working class doesn't collapse, and overall help rebuild the social fabric of this country. But at the same time, if we're being real, do you trust our government to handle that properly? Let me know in the comments. But back to what to do on an individual level, I think the only real solution, as it is for almost all things in life, is to stay aware, stay informed. And this might sound cheesy, but genuinely to become the best and strongest version of yourself so that you can sort of be ready for any challenges that are thrown your way. Because in general, the world ahead of us, I think our whole generation knows that it's not going to be easy. But if you're prepared, if you're strong, if you're able to adapt, then I think you'll come out of it better than most people at least. And we can be an example of how the hard times create strong men and all of that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you stayed until the end and you're hearing this right now, you actually have an attention span that isn't destroyed by Instagram Reels. But yeah, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment too, as I try to respond to as many people as I can. Of course, you guys know that on this channel I'm trying to do things differently from other people on here. That's why I don't take sketchy sponsorships, I don't try to sell you an online course, I don't try to peddle these affiliate links in the description and all of that bullshit. But that unfortunately means that I really don't make a lot of money from these videos, and at the moment I'm still just barely getting by. Hopefully I can move out of this apartment someday, but the only way I can continue this channel and doing what I do, talking about these things, is with your support, if you so choose to do that. Thank you so much to everyone who already does that. I'll show you guys on the screen as always. And if you didn't know, the two ways to support the channel are through Patreon and channel memberships. Let's run through this quickly. On Patreon, you can actually message me one-on-one. You can join our community chat, talk about a lot of these interesting topics that we talk about. And there's a lot of really cool bonus content on there as well. The other way to support the channel, if you don't want to go through the hassle of going onto a completely different platform, is through channel memberships right here on YouTube. With that, if you become a channel member, you can get access to the full archive of videos. I have a lot of previous videos that are much more personal, sometimes even cringe. That's why I made them private. But any channel members, you can get access to those. You can watch all of them. It's a lot of extra content, plus hours and hours of previous full-length live streams. For the people who are new here, I've done a lot of live streams in the past, at least like 10 or 15 extra hours of content. And of course, every channel member gets that badge by their name in the comments, so that I'll hopefully never miss your comment. And of course, as always, gotta plug the second channel. If you want to see a glimpse of what my life looks like outside of just talking about how cooked society is, you can watch some of my travels, some of my hiking and camping adventures and all of that. Really cool stuff on there. Check it out, subscribe. Got some national park videos coming out soon. And that's about it for now.